weeks away from the start of the Emmys of actual voting, just 3 weeks away. We have here the three smartest pundits on the planet, Chris Beachum, Daniel Montgomery, and myself, to tell you there's no sense to wait for these nominations. We already know what they are. Have we ever been wrong at Gold Derby? Of course not. However, two of the three of us are going to be wrong about drama series, and this is where we're going to start off with this chat. The chat is devoted to running through the drama races. Chris, we're coming to you first. You, Daniel, and I are picking three different horses in this same race. All three can't win, and you're on the long shot. Let's just say the horse of a different color here. You're on True Detective. Why?
Well, I'm not totally sold on this pick yet. I move things around a lot in the spring and summer, but it's in my top spot right now because I think the two most buzzed shows all year long, if you look over the whole 12 months, were True Detective and Breaking Bad. And I think it's a real fight between the two of them, and I'm just wondering if maybe the voters might jump on something new like that.
Well, if they're going to jump on something new, Chris, why not House of Cards? My God, I liked the first season. I thought it was quite good. I loved the second season. I went crazy. Now, I think the one disadvantage it has is that it is a little old at this point. It's kind of fading in memory, but that's the problem Breaking Bad certainly faces, right, Daniel? But yeah, you're sold. You got it winning.
For now, it seems it ended back in September. It still sort of feels like it ended yesterday. There's still people who are talking about it, who are still excited about it, and though stuff like the Golden Globes and the SAG Awards, those don't usually mean that much for the Emmys. It has kept that momentum going in terms of people talking about the show, and the fact that those final 8 episodes went up on Netflix not long after House of Cards premiered its second season there, it's certainly going to help keep it visible.
That's a very good point, isn't it? Interesting. But Daniel, you have House of Cards in second place for drama series, so you're not buying this whole Chris Beachum True Detective idea, are you?
Well, I have True Detective in third. I do think it's possible, but I think House of Cards, if something's going to beat Breaking Bad, House of Cards is likelier to do it. Having a one-off storyline anthology kind of show in drama series is sort of an odd thing. I'm not sure how voters are going to react to that when picking winners. When none of these actors, none of these characters, this storyline won't be back next year for them to honor again. And it does, even though it aired more recently than Breaking Bad, I don't think it feels any fresher at this point going into Emmy voting starting in a few weeks. I think it does feel like the excitement for the show has died down.
Chris, you've got Breaking Bad in second place and House of Cards in third. Explain.
Yeah, it looks like we're all on the same wavelength. We think it probably will be one of these three shows. I will say about True Detective, I'm not thrilled about it. I don't like it being in drama races, honestly. I know why HBO did it. I know what their long-term goal is there, but to me, I think I like the American Horror Story, their approach, Fargo's approach. Yeah, the title is coming back year after year, but the people aren't. Or in the case of American Horror Story, some of the actors are, but it's a totally different set of characters, storyline, so forth. I much prefer them being... In fact, Daniel and I had this conversation on the phone the other night. I think maybe take away the stigma of the word miniseries and maybe call it a limited series and make sure that these kind of shows that have the 1 year cycle have somewhere good to go.
Yeah, they really do need to define this, but of course, it's partly the Academy's fault because they've allowed so many people to violate the rules. Now it's the Wild West over there, but also it's the fault of cable in order to say, all right, you no longer need 22, 24 series episodes to be a series. Now 8, 9, 10, 11 is sufficient for Game of Thrones, Mad Men. And Breaking Bad is down 8. So if that's the case, well then equal number or relatively similar number of episodes for a miniseries is the truth. So this is where two trends now are colliding, and I think dangerously so, because they may now need to define the categories by the ways they used to back in the 70s, where they just said it was long form and then all this other stuff. But I want to take a second here while we're on this category. Now, we have other shows we want to talk about. There's Mad Men, there's Masters of Sex, Game of Thrones, etc. The Americans is even in the mix. But I want, since we're in the throes now of Emmy campaign season, I want to show those of you who are watching this on webcam, I want to show you what the Emmy voters get when they vote. And here is the Showtime Emmy package. Notice it's a square box. You open it up this way, and another little box pops up here. Okay, and these are all kind of more or less the same here. A book slides out. Here is the similar book for Lifetime, for example, and they all follow pretty much the format that was started a few years ago by HBO. Each of these now has an area devoted to the show. They no longer have the hype here that says, greatest show in the world, Boston Globe. They've had to remove all that. Some of the networks haven't quite caught up. It's still on there, and they're getting yelled at by the Academy. Here, for example, is Homeland's page in the Emmy mailer for Showtime. And then here is the DVD. And on this DVD, they have 2 episodes for Homeland, Big Man in Tehran and The Star. Generally, they'll send 2 or 3. Now, the exception to that rule is when you get into FX, they send 5 or 6 episodes of, let's say, The Americans or Mad Men. And there's a great debate in the industry of what's the proper number to include. It used to be just 2 or 3, but then FX Network said, screw it, we want to send virtually the whole season, and that's when they started getting traction with Mad Men and Breaking Bad. That seemed to change the rules. FX started including entire seasons of Damages, and they started breaking into the races, and now it's all over the place. There's no there are no rules. And then lately we've seen the streaming enter into the picture, and you have networks like Showtime, which are Showtime, yes, but primarily NBC was the first. Rich Licata, previously at Showtime, was the first to stream all these things. There was some question of whether or not the Emmy voters were actually watching these online. Now it looks like they are. Looks like they've caught up to the new medium. We'll go back to our regular programming for drama contenders here. Daniel, let's look at your other 3 contenders here. You have Game of Thrones, Mad Men, Downton Abbey. You don't have The Americans or Masters of Sex like Chris and I do, but throw in The Good Wife too. That's kind of like the mix there, or no?
Yeah, I think those shows are probably the only shows that have much of a chance. I've sort of got Mad Men and Downton Abbey sort of on the bubble, just getting in. Even though Mad Men is, has to think it's on the bubble after winning 4 times, but it has experienced some waning buzz over the years. I think they'll still get it in there, to keep it in there until it's over next year. Downton Abbey is probably the most vulnerable. I think Masters of Sex could come in there. I'm not sure about The Americans. The voters so thoroughly kind of rejected that show last year that I'm not sure that they're going to give it a second chance this year when the competition seems like it's not any less steep. Good Wife, possibly. It's rare for a show to come back after being snubbed for. I think Good Wife has been gone for 2 years from the category, and it's got new buzz this year, of course, with its storylines and with the departure of Josh Charles. But I'm not sure it's enough to get it back in.
Chris, we also have The Blacklist. We have Scandal. Do we have anything else that could... Homeland. Homeland, that's in the running, right?
Oh, yeah, I think it is. I think from Showtime perspective, Homeland or Masters, I think one of the 2 will get in. I think Emmy voters are pretty smart. I think they understand that Homeland had a real steep decline this year. And that's why I've got Masters in. I don't expect Showtime's going to lose their slot. I just don't think it's going to be Homeland.
Interesting. Well, Daniel, what a shame for us, huh? Right, our favorite show, Hannibal's not going to get in, and that's criminal, isn't it? We should send those cannibals after the Academy members.
Yeah, I'd honestly give it, the True Detective slot. True Detective was good, but I think Hannibal's pulling off something really new and interesting on TV, especially trying to live up to the Silence of the Lambs. I think it's pulling that off in an amazing way.
Yeah, I agree. And Orphan Black at Gold Derby, we also are absolutely enraptured by that. But here's my idea, my crazy idea of the day. We let loose Hannibal through the TV Academy. He murders the members who don't vote for him, and then they come back as The Walking Dead, which isn't never nominated either and deserves to come in. We could have some fun with this category if we ever took this into a graphic novel approach. Let's move on to but we agree that there are three shows that could actually win here: Breaking Bad, House of Cards, and True Detective, right? Do any of you guys have a final thought?
Just that Game of Thrones producers had to be just livid with HBO when they moved True Detective over here. They should have been really the HBO show, dominating, and I think True Detective has taken away their buzz.
Yeah, I agree. All right, now drama actor. We've got Bryan Cranston owned this category for a long time. He's lost in the last couple of years. Now here comes Matthew McConaughey. He won that Oscar, stole it from Leo DiCaprio, if you ask me, in large part because True Detective had such deafening buzz during the Oscar voting period. James Spader, has won 472 times, and 472 times has stood in front of that audience and has told them, I don't even know how I win these things. I don't know what this thing is, how it works, and they kept giving another one for Boston Legal and the Practice. But now he's a very flamboyant, colorful character here. And Kevin Spacey, of course, double Oscar winner, House of Cards. We've got John Hamm's the perennial nominee. Jeff Daniels won last year. Michael Sheen. Now, Daniel, over to you. Do you have any thoughts on these contenders here?
Well, this category was crowded already, and then it got so much more crowded when True Detective moved over to drama. I think McConaughey and Woody Harrelson are both likely to get in, so they're going to squeeze some people out. It's just a matter of who falls out and who stays in. Jeff Daniels, even though he won last year, there's sort of a stigma around canceled shows. The fact that the upcoming season of the Newsroom is going to be its last, and it's never been a critic's favorite. It's never been, an Aaron Sorkin show should be the cool show, but this one really hasn't pulled that off. And so he could fall out after winning last year. John Hamm has been nominated every year and hasn't won. They might give up on him this year, potentially. I don't know. It's going to be hard for anyone to get in there. I think Cranston and McConaughey and Spacey, I think they're guaranteed locks for at least nominations, though.
Chris?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't have Jeff Daniels in, and you and I, Tom, love that show. I think it's mainly because McConaughey and Harrelson are coming in. I think he normally would have gotten back in. Remember, the Newsroom aired last summer, the second season. That's the season he would be eligible for. So by the time these voters vote, it's not the third isn't even coming back till the mid to late fall. So it will be forever since that show aired. And I think that hurts him. Michael Sheen, I think, could get in. I think John Hamm is really the one on the bubble here. The others I have pretty safe. James Spader is very, very over the top on the blacklist, and I think, being a first-year show and all, I think he's going to get in.
Yeah, I agree. And then it comes down to episode selection. Bryan Cranston, we've already been having these in-depth discussions at Gold Derby, what episode he should submit. Do either of you guys have a thought there, a preference?
Well, I think Ozymandias, the episode everyone's talking about, I think that's his episode. I think it's the episode of Breaking Bad from the last season. I think the Vince Gilligan and the makers of the show think, yeah, that's our best show ever. It gives him plenty of fireworks. And the finale is good too. I think either would be competitive, but I really think Ozymandias is really, really the one to go for. I think that's the kind of episode almost everybody, like half the cast and crew, will be submitting.
Is that the one where he kidnaps his own kid?
Yeah, that's the one where he has the big, knife fight with Skyler, runs out with the kid that has
Yeah.
that phone call. It's yeah, that's a big, emotional explosions in that episode.
Yeah, but how do you vote for a guy who's threatened to kill his own baby? Oh, that's terrible. But he is Breaking Bad. We have to forgive him for that. Um, what about
I
Matthew?
think
Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say on McConaughey, I don't know exactly which one he's looking to submit, but I think one of the smartest things he's ever done toward the Emmys, not that he probably thought it through all that well, but he had to campaign so hard for the Oscars. He had to be everywhere. He had to do every interview imaginable. Think about it. As soon as that was over, you haven't seen him. He disappeared, which I think was smart, not to continue to be out there so much that you make people sick of you.
Well, he
And
was shooting a movie, Chris, during he had to come. I forget which movie it was. When we spoke to him, it was the day after it was the day of the Oscar nomination luncheon. And he
right.
came up to our hotel suite at the Beverly Hilton, as did Leo, and we chatted with them there. But he snubbed most of the others at that time, went back to filming whatever this movie was. I'm sure he's done by now, but he's obviously pretty busy. But yeah, but in general, he's kept low. You're right. It started off early in the Oscar season. He was talking with everybody. I mean, back in October, November, he was doing long sit-down interviews with the Pocono Shopping News, and now we're not going to see that.
Yeah, I think that's a smart way to go. I mean, like last year, Anne Hathaway even said afterwards, or it was actually months and months later. She said, after that long campaign season, she said internally, I just felt like people were probably sick of me and I needed to disappear. And I think that's true of anybody that campaigns for an Oscar. Most of them aren't then turning around and needing to campaign for the Emmys. So I think he's just going to ride the coattails of that and see what happens.
Okay. Well, Kevin Spacey, I haven't seen him yet. I heard he was in town. I ran into some people last night who saw him. I believe they're doing an event at the TV Academy as well. So he's actually in a kind of out there campaign mode. That should be interesting. John Hamm never is. Michael Sheen is always accessible. I'm looking through our list here. James Spader, that's a wackadoodle right there. That guy is really on another planet in real life too. And we're not sure whether we're getting him. NBC's trying.
I met him, Tom, you'll love this, in the hallway at the Hilton one time, Beverly Hilton. And it was after I think he'd won his second time, so it wasn't too deep into Boston Legal Run. And I just casually said, hey, I'm with Gold Derby. It was it was in the TCA time frame, so Emmy nominations were out, but the episodes weren't tuned in yet. And I just said, hey, have you thought about what episode you're submitting yet for the Emmys this time around? Congratulations on another nomination. He said, he was by himself too. He said, "What? What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
He had no idea what I was talking about.
How is that possible? How is that possible? Just unbelievable. But we know why he won 3 of those. It's the same reason that Jeff Daniels won last year for The Newsroom, and that is the Emmy voters are suckers for speechifying, and that at the end of those practice and Boston Legal episodes, he was given these big, grandiose summation speeches before a jury and a judge. He was able to strike righteous poses and give these, saber-rattling speeches in defense of liberty and justice and blah, blah, blah. And they just lay down and just...
That's why I think McConaughey's going to win this. I mean, think about the scenes at the interrogation table in the room. Think about the scenes in the car. He has long pages of dialogue that he gets. I really do. Now, you mentioned Kevin Spacey. Unlike Robin Wright, who we'll talk about next, who has a fantastic episode,
Yes.
think back over House of Cards. As good as he was all year, I don't know that he's got an episode.
I agree with you, because it's not a long, sustained, speechifying showcase role, and let's switch over to Robin Wright here while we're talking about this, because that has been her problem in the past. We didn't take her seriously as a contender for awards because she didn't have that last year. She got nominated. She's been a player, and then all of a sudden she wins the Golden Globe, and we're like, what the F is that? But then all of a sudden, when House of Cards Season 2 came up, we could see her character advance forward dramatically, get the face time and the screen time that she needs to win an Emmy. And all of a sudden now, she's #1 in our prediction center. All 6 of the experts we have questioned are voting for her. And where do you come down on that, Chris? She's the solid frontrunner?
I think so. Now, that's partially because we know for sure what episode she would submit. She has only one really showcase for the season. That was the fourth one, where she does the interview with the lady and really diabolically uses that live interview to uncover some fake secrets from her past. And I mean, she really and has a lot of screen time in that episode. I think that's more why a lot of us have her in first, because we don't necessarily know what the other people are submitting yet.
Daniel, drama actress, what's going to happen?
Yeah, that's a question mark. I have Robin Wright in my number one spot, just because everyone's talking about that fourth episode. But this is going to be a category that could change drastically depending on who the lineup we actually get in here is. There are people who are on the bubble of this category who could win it. As the hardest part is getting in, and specifically we alluded to her earlier, Tatiana Maslany in Orphan Black. I think she has a much better chance this year than she had last year, because the buzz has finally caught up to the show, where people might actually, voters might actually, be catching up to watching it. And if she sneaks into this top six, whatever episode she submits, she will be playing more characters in that episode potentially than the rest of the category combined. That's gonna be hard to beat. So I mean, she could go from not even on the radar to front runner status pretty quick.
Right, and let's explain why that is. At the Emmys, they're suckers for multiple personality roles. We saw Toni Collette win just a few years ago. We've seen in the daytime Emmys, tons of examples of where people play 6, 8 characters and automatically win. There's a long history of this, even at the Oscars. Tatiana was on the June cover of Emmy magazine as well. She's gotten very, very, prominence over there. She's won some of the critics' awards. She's on the radar now. And it is a sexy series. I've just recently caught up with it. Finally, like many people, was late to the party, and now I'm won over. I'm just swept along by this show and think it's a masterpiece. But you know what else? Talk about people on the bubble here. She got in last year, and that's Vera Farmiga. I have seen all of the Bates Motels for the full season. I had the privilege of getting the advance reel, and I can tell you the finale episode that's not yet aired of that show is a master effing piece of where she gives the biggest performance of her life, and it is just rattling. I'll give you this spoiler. It's not much of a spoiler, but the one potential criticism I think that's valid of Bates Motel is it's taken forever for Norman Bates to get weird and crazy. Well, the wait is over, fans, because in the finale, he gets right under your skin and stays there and creeps you out like anything, and Mama goes nuts with him, and it's quite a great hour of TV. Daniel, you've got Kerry Washington in second place, and she gives big, flashy performances, doesn't she? She's had lousy luck at the Emmys and etc., the Golden Globes in recent years, but we shouldn't write her off, right?
Probably not. I mean, she's the one with the biggest buzz. She has, the most popular network drama right now in terms of buzz, even compared to The Good Wife. It might even be sort of eclipsing that as a water cooler network show. But last year, the only episodes I've seen from the show were the ones submitted by her and Dan Bukatinsky last year, and I wasn't really impressed by either. I don't know if she has better this season. The nature of the show, the very soapy, kind of over-the-top nature of the show, I don't think is going to help her when she's up against these sort of, dramatic heavyweights like Robin Wright, like Vera Farmiga, like the many faces of Tatiana. I'm not sure. I'm not sure she's going to win for this role.
Juliana Margulies, Chris, where do you stand on her? You've got her in 4th place. She's a wild card, isn't she? She's back in contention. She was not nominated last year, but she's a winner of this race who's suddenly back in the lineup. Explain.
I wonder, like we talked about earlier, people don't often get kicked out and then come back, but I think she was suffering a little bit last year remember, last year there were so many new people trying to get in. Robin Wright, Kerry Washington, Vera Farmiga, just on and on and on and on. I think she suffered from one of those age-old problems of people were trying to get their favorite new person in, and it wasn't like they were trying to boot her out. They just thought other people will vote for her. So I wonder if now that'll calm down a little and she'll come back.
Among the new people angling it this year, Chris, is somebody you've got in sixth place, Lizzie Kaplan.
I think Lizzie Kaplan gives the best performance on that show.
Oh, come on, really? Okay.
I do. I think she has more nuance to her performance than anybody else, but remember, she's this, it's the 1950s. She's got a little bit of background, doing what she wants to do, but I mean, she starts out as a secretary and works her way up to eventually, in the course of history, being on par with this Dr. Masters. So, I mean, she really knocks it out of the park. And it may be more of a wish pick. I may change it out eventually, but I think she's got a decent shot at getting in there.
Claire Danes, Daniel, she's won. You've got her in third place. What's going on there?
I think, even with the decline of Homeland over the last season, I think if any one of the actors is probably safe to return, it's Claire Danes, but even then I wouldn't say she's guaranteed. I'm just going to assume the affection is strong enough for her, at least, if not the show this year, that she's just, they'll just invite her back in automatically after having won twice in a row. I don't know that she has a chance to win. Having seen the season, I don't know what episode would be competitive against the field if everyone submits the best they have to offer.
Elizabeth Moss keeps getting voted back automatically, to the point you were both just making about others in this race. I have just benched her for now. I've just said, all right, there are too many other contenders here, and my wish list, which I realize is a long shot. I have Kerry Russell in here. I realize that's a long shot because, for many reasons, the show hasn't gained the traction that we thought it might last year. But that, of course, doesn't mean anything really. Sometimes it takes 2 years. But even if the Americans shows up elsewhere, I think Carrie's got a problem in that her role is not flashy. She plays a stone-faced Soviet spy in the United States, so I may have to change that.
Speaking of her, though, wouldn't it be great to get Matthew Rhys in on the other side? I think he gives the performance of the show for that particular season.
He does, and certainly deserves to be in there. Yeah.
You mentioned Claire Danes. I don't know that I will ever move her out of my picks because that would be kind of stupid on the front end. But if it turns out on that morning of nominations she's not in there, I'm not going to be shocked. We've seen it. We've seen very popular people like Eric Stonestreet, John Cryer, Kira Sedgwick years ago win an award with, we think, maybe Jeff Daniels this year, and then the very next year be knocked out. It's like you got your prize. We got other people to work with now.
Right. Don't want the door hit in the ass. Michelle Dockery is kind of like an automatic nominee in recent years. She's too stoic as a performer to win. That role is too laid back, but she's certainly in the running, right?
I would hope they take Downton way down a few notches myself.
Really? Oh, that's great, Chris. There's this thing.
I like the show. I like it in general.
Oh, come on.
But I just don't see how these...
Shame on you.
These performances, there's not a person on that show that gives a flashy performance like a lot of these others.
Subtlety sometimes matters. Hey, in 11th place, according to the experts, racetrack odds at goldderby.com, is Mariska Hargitay. Now, let's talk about this. This is a woman who won back in 2006. She's had, 4 billion nominations here. She's not been in the running in recent years. And NBC is really angling to get her back in the race, right? So a couple of months ago, they sent me 3 DVDs of this 3-part series, a story arc of her where she gets kidnapped, and there's this bonkers rapist killer on the loose, and she fights. It's very dramatic, and they're saying, look, this is the role to get her back in, but she's facing some tough competition to break back into the top 6, I think.
Yeah, drama just has exploded so much in the past 3 or 4 years. I just don't know how an aging show gets anybody back in.
Megan Boone, we just chatted with her. What are her chances, Daniel?
I don't
in the conversation.
Probably not really in the conversation. I think any support for the blacklist is going to revolve around James Spader, probably.
Connie Britton we underestimated recently, right? Didn't she come bouncing in with a nomination? We got her way down in 13th place.
Yeah, they had to make 7 slots last year to get her in.
Woo!
That show just barely made it to another season in this past week. There's been a real love for Connie Britton. I think she's been up 4 years in a row for, is it 4 different roles? Is that right? 3 different roles?
Wow.
So they've been doing a little catch-up off of Friday Night Lights for her.
All right, let's just confess to our viewers and listeners here. Let's be totally honest. What shows do you really, really love? Which ones are you rooting for? And I'll start, okay? I am absolutely insanely in love. We've already talked about Hannibal. Breaking Bad, of course. I love House of Cards Season 2. Not just like, but love it. I don't know what's going on in Game of Thrones. I haven't given that the attention it deserves, and I'm just resistant to it. Whenever it turns on, my head turns to soap, and I just stop watching. So I will admit to being biased and closed-minded there. But Hannibal, we love that, right, Daniel? We're crazy about Hannibal. And Bates Motel, I'm completely nuts and bonkers for that. I just think it's so great, especially everyone's going to love the finale this year. Then I hope it just stays in the creepy zone next year. And then the Newsroom is always good, like we know Chris, and the rest of the world doesn't. It's just great. So, Chris, passing off to you, which of these contenders and shows do you have absolute personal mad love for?
Well, I'm like you. I thought House of Cards' second season was way better than the first. Just love that whole arc that they had. Masters on Showtime, I love that. Just everybody in that is just pitch perfect. I like The Americans a lot. I think it's taken just a little bit of a dip this second season. I just watched the final 2 episodes, which I think everybody else will see over the next couple of weeks, and not as thrilled. And really, a lot of the other shows I normally like Mad Men or Justified, those kinds of shows, they've really taken a step backwards, and I just could not put them up on a highly recommend list right at the moment.
Daniel, we love Orphan Black, don't we?
Yeah, I like that show a lot. I like you caught up with it recently, and I think Tatiana Maslany would certainly make the Best Actress race a lot more interesting. I'm not as hugely invested in that show though as I am in say something like Masters of Sex. I think that Bad would be my personal pick to win, but if there's any show I'm rooting to really break through, it's Masters of Sex.
Really? So you've got to explain this Masters of Sex thing to me, you guys.
So even though
you've got to explain this Masters of Sex thing. I've watched the episodes over. Nothing ever happens. What am I missing? Why is it so good? Why do you guys get hard-ons over Masters of Sex, and I can't even get a rise out of it? What am I missing there?
Well, I like historical shows
Masters
anyway.
of Sex isn't like.
We're both going to stop.
Well, Masters of Sex, it's not like a dramatic, action-packed or big plot development sort of show, but neither has Mad Men has never been that either, and that's been beloved by so many people. And I think Masters of Sex, at least in its first season, has done that better than Mad Men has probably done. It's a much more feminist show, I think, in general, because even though Michael Sheen is ostensibly the lead character, what we're really getting on that show is a really close, subtle look at how this entire culture and society, the medical establishment, the sexual mores, and all of that really affects the women in these storylines, and each in very different ways. From the Lizzie Kaplan character, who's trying to be sexually liberated, but also taken seriously as a professional, and the glass ceiling for Julianne Nicholson, the repression for Allison Janney, the fertility struggles, the marriage struggles for Master's wife. We're getting all these really subtle but really insightful looks at how this culture affects the women in it, and I've just been so impressed by it from the beginning to the end of its first season.
Okay. And Chris, you had some thoughts?
Well, I would agree with all that. I'm a sucker for these historical dramas anyway. They always attract me in because we know basically where things go in real life in the future. So it's fun to see how they got there, and I particularly like the writing on any given episode. Just the way that they weave the beginning to the middle to the end is just impressive to me. They have their own little story structures and arcs within even a given episode.
Let's segue over to Mad Men for a moment. I agree with the consensus that the show is remaining consistently good and strong. My complaint is still, out there that not enough happens on the show in terms of plot. Things just don't move forward, although that has certainly changed a bit over this past week. I don't see John Hamm getting flashy enough dramatically to finally win his overdue Emmy, but I don't also see the show becoming, redefining itself in a strong enough way to win again. But yet I think it's remaining in the conversation. I think it's still strong and matters a lot. I just keep hoping it'll go to some more, to that next oh my god step that it's managed in the past so successfully so often, and now just seems to be stepping short of this time. What do you think, Daniel, of Mad Men?
I've never been as enthralled with the show as people were, even when the show was at its peak. I think it's had some really, really strong years and really and not quite as compelling years. I think it's been a show that I've always admired, but only occasionally loved. This season, I think it's been good. I think it's been solid. I think it's it's in a position that's sort of the opposite of Breaking Bad in terms of its trajectory over the years. Breaking Bad really caught on slow and then went out with a huge bang. Mad Men is sort of having the unfortunate opposite trend, where it started out big right out of the gate. And the favor for it, the love for it, just has sort of waned as people are waiting for it to show them more. And I'm not sure what more it has up its sleeve that we haven't already seen already from the show.
Well, yesterday Chris and I were talking, right, Chris, and you went, and I had not yet seen the current newest episode of Mad Men, and Chris is saying, Tom, you're going to be so excited, something's finally happened. Right, Chris?
Oh yeah, Ben Feldman, who was nominated in the guest, he actually had something to do this week, and it does seem like just the undercurrent of some things that are generating that it looks like I can kind of tell. I hope I can tell maybe where the plot is headed with certain characters. When you have a final season like they're in, basically 7 now and 7 next year, there are moments where I just look at the screen thinking, really, you only have a few episodes left, and you want to spend this much time, with this person or this story. I don't know how it's going. I could see it falling out of this drama series race, to be honest. At least this time.
It could. It actually could. Yeah. I hope not, but it actually could. But Matt, if you're listening, we still love the show. It's just you got to kick it up a notch. There's some competition here. You got to get in their faces and scream, scream, scream. Let's wrap things up here. We're going to take a separate look in the future at the supporting races and guest races. Meantime, this has been, I think, a really great analysis of the top drama series races. We still have 3 weeks to go before voting starts, and we still have 2 months to go before nominations are out, and we still have more than 3 months to go before we have a winner. So this is TV Christmas for us. The Emmys season lasts forever. We have lots to talk about. But meantime, look at the Gold Derby racetrack odds. We now have nearly a dozen of the experts piping in, plus all the editors of Gold Derby, plus the brilliant mind. We have a really good sense of where the race is shaping up. But if you have not given us your predictions yet yourself, you who's listening and watching this chat, shame on you. Get in the mix. We want your predictions. Just go on that predictions button in the top right of the site, click it, and go to it. Meantime, thanks for watching.